Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take the things you're curious about and, well, we really explore the ideas behind them. Today, we're getting into something pretty fundamental. How great leaders actually inspire action.
Yeah, and we're using Simon Sinek's Start With Why as our guide here, based on what you sent in.
Exactly. So our mission, really, is to unpack what separates leaders who truly inspire from those who, just motivate.
What's the key difference?
Definitely. And if you're trying to understand influence, maybe in your team, for a project, or even just personally, this should be really relevant for you.
So Sinek kicks things off with a distinction that, honestly, we probably glide over a lot. Motivation versus inspiration.
Right. We talk about motivation all the time. Bonuses, targets, maybe even fear of failure, external things.
External levers, yeah. They get results, sure. For a while, maybe. But what happens when that bonus goes away or the pressure eases off?
That's the question. And that's where inspiration comes in, according to Sinek. It's not about those outside pushes.
It's internal. It comes from a connection to something bigger.
Yeah, it flips that switch from, I guess I have to do this, to, I really want to be part of this.
And that idea of contributing to the whole, not just your own task list, that seems crucial.
Which brings us right to the core, doesn't it? The why.
The big why. It sounds so simple just asking why, but actually understanding and, importantly, articulating that purpose, that core belief. Sinek argues that's everything.
Because people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. That's the mantra.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's really get into this why with his golden circle idea. Can you walk us through that?
Sure. So imagine 3 concentric circles, like a target. On the very outside, you have what?
Okay, like products, services, your job title, the tangible stuff.
Precisely. We all know our what. Then, moving inward, you get to how.
The process, the values, what makes you special, maybe.
Yeah, your unique selling proposition, your guiding principles, things that differentiate how you do your what, but right in the bullseye, at the very center.
That's the why.
That's the why. Your purpose, your cause, your fundamental belief. Why does your organization even exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning?
And the powerful bit is how communication should flow, right? Not from the outside in, but
inside out. Start with why. Explain why you do what you do first. Then talk about how you do it, and finally, what you actually offer as proof.
But most companies do it the other way around, don't they?
Almost always. We make great widgets. They're made with premium materials. Want to buy one?
Oh, yeah.
Apple's a classic counterexample he uses. They don't lead with, we make great computers.
No, their message is more about challenging things, thinking differently, empowering people.
Exactly. Their why is about challenging the status quo, empowering the individual, the beautiful computers and phones. That's just the proof of their why.
So for you listening, maybe think about an organization you admire. What's their real belief? Maybe even the unspoken one that started it all.
That can be incredibly revealing.
Sinek uses some great stories here. Let's talk about the Wright brothers versus Samuel Pierpont Langley.
Oh yeah, that's a fantastic illustration. You had 2 groups essentially racing to achieve manned flight.
Similar goals, smart people, resources. Langley even had more funding, right? And government backing.
He did. He had the connections, the established team. On paper, maybe he looked like the safer bet.
So what was the difference? Sinek points to their why.
It seems the Wright brothers were driven by this deep-seated belief, this passion for flight and how it could change everything. They truly believed in it.
Whereas Langley, it seemed more about the fame,
the
achievement, being the first one there.
That's how Sinek frames it.
Yeah.
And that difference apparently permeated everything. The Wright brothers inspired intense loyalty and belief in their small team. They faced setback after setback.
But they kept going because they shared that why.
Exactly. And the telling part, Langley, well, shortly after the Wrights actually flew.
He just quit, packed it in.
Yeah. Which really suggests his motivation was tied to the what being first, not a deeper, more resilient why.
It shows that real innovation isn't just about the breakthrough itself, but that underlying passion that gets you through the tough parts.
Absolutely. Then there's Apple again. They don't always have the biggest market share, but boy, do they lead the industry conversation.
Still, why is that?
Again, it comes back to that core why. Challenge the status quo, empower the individual. That message resonates.
You see it throughout their history. The original Mac taking on IBM.
Right, or the iPod. I mean, MP3 players existed before the iPod, didn't they?
Oh yeah, Creative Technology had one out earlier.
But Apple's communication was totally different. Sinek highlights this brilliantly. Creative said, here's a 5 GB MP3 player, that's the what?
Just the spec. Whereas Apple said,
1,000 songs in your pocket.
yeah,
They focused on the benefit, the experience, the reason why you'd want it.
selling the belief, not just the feature.
And that consistency, communicating their why over and over, builds incredible loyalty. People buy into the Apple idea, not just the next iPhone.
The brand becomes more than just the products.
Totally. Another really powerful example he uses is Martin Luther King Jr.
The March on Washington.
Yeah, think about that. August 1963. Hundreds of thousands of people gathered. There were no websites, no mass email campaigns.
No social media invites. How did they all know to show up?
It wasn't about a detailed plan sent out. It was about Dr. King's dream, his vision, his why.
A belief in equality. Not just for some, but for everyone.
He articulated a belief in a different future for America, and people came because they shared that belief. They showed up for themselves and what they believed in, represented by him.
It wasn't about following him necessarily, but following the idea he represented.
Precisely. And this really highlights the contrast Sinek draws between inspiration and, well, manipulation.
Manipulation sounds harsh, but he lists common business tactics, right?
Yeah, things we see constantly, price drops, promotions, playing on fear.
Limited time offer, don't miss out.
Exactly. Using aspirations, be like this person if you buy this. Peer pressure, novelty, the latest new thing.
We're surrounded by it. And Sinek's point is, these things can work. They can drive a sale.
They can definitely get a transaction. But do they build loyalty? Rarely.
Think about the car industry example he gives, getting hooked on cash back offers.
Yeah, customers became junkies, just waiting for the next incentive. It wasn't loyalty to the brand.
Or rebates, where companies kind of bank on people not actually sending them in. That's slippage.
It's purely transactional, no real relationship building there.
And novelty. Remember the Motorola RAZR?
Oh yeah, huge.
For a minute, exactly. It was new and cool, drove massive sales, but didn't build lasting value or loyalty for Motorola in the long run. They confused new with innovative.
Sinek contrasts this with Southwest Airlines, especially in their early days. Their why was about being the champion for the common person, making air travel accessible.
The low-fare airline with a personality.
Right, and that created fierce loyalty. He tells that amazing story about a time they were struggling financially.
And customers actually sent them money, checks in the mail.
Yeah. Just because they believed so strongly in what Southwest stood for, that's not manipulation. That's genuine connection built on a shared why.
Wow. So what's going on in our brains when this why stuff works so well? Sinek talks about biology.
Yeah, this is fascinating. He connects the golden circle to how our brain is structured. The what corresponds to the neocortex, our rational, analytical brain that handles language.
Okay, facts, figures, features.
Right. But the why and the how, he argues, connect more with the limbic brain.
Which is responsible for
Feelings, trust, loyalty, decision-making. Importantly, the limbic brain doesn't have capacity for language.
so that explains gut feelings. Why we sometimes make a decision that just feels right, but we struggle to explain it logically.
Exactly. I don't know, it just felt right. That's the limbic brain at work.
So if companies only talk about the what, they're appealing to the rational brain.
But they're not necessarily hitting that deeper emotional decision-making part.
Which means just throwing data and rational arguments at people might not be enough to truly persuade or inspire them.
It often isn't. You need to connect with the why, which leads to the next crucial point. You need clarity, discipline, and consistency around that why.
It's not enough just to have a why hidden away somewhere.
No. You need crystal clarity. What is it really? Then discipline, do your actions, your processes, your how actually align with that why?
And consistency is everything you say and do, consistently reflecting that core belief.
Authenticity comes when all three parts of the golden circle are in balance and aligned. That's how you build trust. People see that what you believe matches what you do.
He uses that great analogy, the celery test.
Right. If your stated why is, say, health and well-being.
Then going to the grocery store, it makes sense to buy celery, maybe some rice milk, healthy stuff. People see that and think, okay, that fits.
But if you load up your cart with donuts and chocolate cake,
it sends a mixed message.
Yeah.
It feels inconsistent, inauthentic. People won't trust your commitment to health.
It's a simple way to think about checking if decisions align with your core purpose. Does this action, this product, this hire, does it pass the celery test for our why?
Like the Southwest hiring example you mentioned earlier, looking for personality, not just experience, because their why was about people.
Yeah, Herb Kelleher and that hole in his sock. It showed the culture wasn't just talk. Compare that to VW trying to launch the Phaeton, that super luxury car.
Under the main VW brand. Yeah, that felt weird.
Because VW's why was always rooted in being the people's car. Accessible, reliable. The luxury sedan just didn't compute. It failed the celery test for their brand.
Whereas Toyota launching Lexus or Honda launching Acura.
They did it as separate brands, distinct entities, but arguably still aligned with the parent company's core values of quality and reliability. That worked.
Okay, so you have a clear, consistent why. How does that idea actually spread? How does it reach a lot of people?
Sinek brings in the law of diffusion of innovations here. You've probably seen that bell curve.
Yeah, the innovators, early adopters, early majority.
Late majority and laggards.
Right.
The innovators are the first ones trying anything new. But the crucial group for mass market success is the early adopters.
They're influential, right? People look to them.
Exactly. And Sinek argues that early adopters are primarily motivated by why. They take a risk on a new idea or product because they believe in the purpose behind it. They want to be part of that change.
The majority, though, the early and late majority, they're more pragmatic.
They need more proof. They often wait to see what the early adopters think. They ask, has anyone else tried this?
So if you don't connect with the why of those early adopters...
Your idea might stall. He points to TiVo as an example.
Oh, TiVo. Great product technologically. Changed TV viewing.
Revolutionary.
Yeah.
But their marketing focused heavily on the what. It pauses live TV. It records shows. They didn't effectively communicate a compelling why that resonated with those crucial early adopters.
So it never quite achieved the mass market breakthrough it seemed destined for initially.
It struggled to cross that chasm into the majority market. Contrast that again with Dr. King. His why deeply resonated with the early adopters of the civil rights movement.
And their belief and actions then inspired the broader majority to join in. The idea spread through shared conviction.
It followed that diffusion curve, fueled by belief. But there's a danger zone, Sinek identifies.
What's that?
He calls it the split. It happens as organizations grow.
Things get bigger, more complex.
Exactly. And the initial clarity of the why, which often drove early decisions based on gut feeling and belief, it can start to get fuzzy.
Decisions become more based on metrics, spreadsheets, rational analysis, focusing only on the what and how.
Right. The connection to the founding passion, the core why, weakens. And when that happens, inspiration tends to fade, both internally and externally.
You lose that spark. He mentions AOL as maybe an example of this.
Yeah, a company that started with a really inspiring vision of connecting people online.
You've got mail. Everyone remembers that.
But over time, maybe the focus shifted purely to market share, subscriber numbers, the what, and that original inspiring why got lost somewhere along the way.
It really shows how leaders need to constantly champion and reinforce the why, especially during growth. It can't just be assumed.
It has to be actively nurtured, which raises another interesting question. How do you measure something like why? It feels intangible.
That's a good point. It's not like tracking sales units.
But Sinek gives examples of companies that do try to measure things related to their why or values, like Bridgeport Financial, a debt collection agency.
Okay, not usually a place you associate with inspiring whys.
Right, but they started measuring things like the rapport and understanding their collectors built with debtors.
Instead of just how much money they collected.
Exactly, and guess what? Their collection rates went up significantly. Focusing on treating people with respect, perhaps their underlying why actually improved their result.
That's fascinating. Or honors construction.
They measured work-life balance by actually incentivizing people to leave work on time.
Seriously. Rewarding people for not working late.
Yeah. And productivity and morale apparently soared. It showed their commitment to their people, their why was real, and it paid off in tangible ways.
It demonstrates that focusing on the why isn't just fluffy stuff. It can have real business impact.
Absolutely. And ultimately, the leader is the chief embodiment of that why.
They have to live it.
Think of Bill Gates in Microsoft's early days. He was the face of that mission to put a computer on every desk. His passion, his vision, that was the company's why made visible.
And Steve Jobs at Apple, obviously, the ultimate showman for their why.
Totally. When you have a leader who so clearly embodies the purpose, it permeates the organization.
Then you look at Walmart. Sam Walton had this clear why, right? About serving customers, offering value, taking care of his people.
That seemed to be his core belief. But after he was gone, well, the company's reputation shifted. That focus seemed to blur. The why got fuzzy.
And you compare that to Costco now. Their success seems built on incredible employee loyalty and customer satisfaction.
Which stems directly from their focus on valuing people, employees, and customers. It feels like they're living a clear why that echoes some of Sam Walton's original principles.
It shows the enduring power of a clear, lived why. So where does this why even come from in the first place? How do you find it?
Sinek suggests it often traces back to the very beginning. The founder's origin story, their initial passion. Why did they start this thing in the first place? What problem did they desperately want to solve?
It's often deeply personal. He shares a bit about his own journey, realizing the importance of his own why during tough times in his business.
It's that core motivator, and he tells that really moving story about Ben Komen.
The high school runner with cerebral palsy.
Yeah, who always finishes races long after everyone else, but his perseverance, his personal why, inspires his teammates and even runners from opposing teams to run alongside him.
He's not competing against them. He's competing against himself, driven by his own purpose.
Which leads to this final shift in perspective Sinek proposes. Your real competition isn't other companies.
It's yourself.
It's about constantly striving to be better tomorrow than you were today, based on your own why. How can we improve according to our standards, our purpose? Great organizations focus inward on their own journey, guided by their why.
So, wrapping this up, the core message from Start With Why seems incredibly clear and powerful.
It really boils down to this. Understanding, articulating, and consistently acting from your core belief, your purpose, your why, that's the foundation for inspiring people.
It's what builds that deep loyalty, that trust, that allows you to achieve not just short-term results, but lasting, meaningful success.
It moves beyond just managing tasks to actually leading people towards a shared vision.
So maybe the final thought for you listening right now is this. How can you start leading more consciously with your why?
Yeah, whether it's in your job, your community, or just your personal goals, what's one small thing you could do, maybe even today, to bring your actions into better alignment with what you truly believe?
It's about finding that internal driver and using it to inspire, not just motivate.
Connecting with something bigger than just the task at hand.